Hi there, my name is Joe Quintana and I'm here today with former director and shareholder of Friars Moor, Julian Allen. He was also the senior vet of Friars Moor Veterinary Clinic. I'm going to be asking Julian a few questions about Friars Moor, his work with hgkc and his exit from the business. So first things first, can you give us an overview of Friars Moor and how you came to work with hgkc?
Okay, so Friars Moor is a veterinary practice in North Dorset, and we provide services to local livestock farmers as well as small animal clients. And I've worked there for nearly 30 years. For most of that time, I've been a director of the business, and I've just recently retired from the practice in the last few months. Unlike many veterinary practices these days, which have been sold to corporate entities, Friars Moor has wanted to remain independent, and we believe this to be in the best interests of the owners of the business, our clients, and also the people that work for us. The practice has grown a great deal over the last 10 years or so, and we now work out of 3 sites, and we employ over 70 people, about 26 of whom are vets. And this period of growth has seen a lot of change and has presented quite a few challenges. And I think the directorship recognised back in 2015 that the scale and the nature of our business was undergoing, as I say, this significant change. And we realised that we probably needed some help managing that change. One thing about vets is they get trained a lot about treating animals and veterinary medicine, but very little training on how to run a business. Most of that is learned on the job. We spend most of our time very preoccupied with doing our day-to-day work. So some sort of business coaching and some help with running a business was something that we thought was needed. So in 2015, we enrolled on a growth accelerator program for small businesses, which was part funded by government. And we were put in touch with several business coaches or advisors, and we interviewed them all and chose to work with Peter Quintana from hgkc, and also his colleagues that we've had help from as well. And we chose to work with Peter mainly because he very quickly, I think, got the measure of us and our business and what we wanted to achieve. And he seemed to understand the nature and the culture of our business, where, caring for our clients and the well-being of our staff has always been paramount. We value our place in the local community, and the practice has a sort of family feel to it. And we didn't want to sacrifice any of that in order to grow the business. But at the same time, we realized we needed to market our services more effectively and also try and develop some management structures within the business to cope with increasing staff numbers and that sort of thing. And then succession planning was also an issue. We were at that time aware that over the next few years, 4 out of the 6 then directors were due to retire. So that obviously was key to continuing the business and making the business thrive. So there was a lot to do, and we did do a lot with Peter's guidance. I suppose initially we worked on defining our company vision and mission and the values, and that wasn't just from the director's point of view. We had all the staff involved with that process. We undertook context and SWOT analyses for the business to see where we were in the wider world. We restructured the business into 2 separate divisions, so a farm business and a small animal business, and each of those divisions had their own management teams and an operations groups. And again, this was involved not just the directors, but many of the staff as well. We also have an extremely efficient practice manager who was key to a lot of what we're going to talk about today. We went on to develop a series of bold steps for growing the business, and then from that we developed game plans to action some of those bold steps. And again, that was a team effort involving all those who would ultimately be involved in whatever those projects were going to be. So that was an important step. We were encouraged by Peter to develop a sort of suite of KPIs to make monitoring the performance of the business a bit easier, and also something that could be done in a timely manner. So those were produced on a regular basis. And over the years, we sort of swapped and changed some of the metrics we were looking at. And again, those were shared with staff members as well. They weren't just solely for the directors. And we did a similar thing with some of the financial data from the practice. So we had upgraded our management accounts. So again, those became more useful so we could see what was going on in a more timely manner. We rebranded the practice I was amazed by how much we did actually do during those years.
Does sound like a busy time.
It was a busy time, yeah. But it didn't seem, I mean, it was busy, but there was a lot of enthusiasm about the whole process. So it didn't seem onerous, and particularly Peter was, instrumental in making sure we were heading in the right direction all the time and providing new ideas as we went along. On the marketing side, we'd always felt one of our weaknesses was that we weren't very good at shouting about what we did and putting ourselves out there. So Peter's suggestion was to use the marketing strategy of the theme of developing a visible X to really try and consolidate and put our professional reputations out there so people knew what we could do and knew what skills and knowledge there was in the business. And there was quite a bit more besides, but I think as a result of all those changes and going through those processes, I think the directors developed a much more sort of focused business mindset. And we realized, I think, that we needed to work on the business, as much as we worked in the business. That was a thing that came out of it. And as a result of all that, we've made some significant progress. The growth of the business continued. So the number of employees and turnover and all that sort of thing and the number of services we were offering and the number of clients we were servicing all grew during that period. I think it was good for staff morale as well. We tried to involve everybody, and I think they felt more engaged with what was going on, thought they had a say in what the future might hold. And as a result, we won a few awards during that time for some of the things we were doing. We won a Best Place to Work award locally in Dorset. We won an industry award for reducing antibiotic use on farm, which has been one of the key issues in farm animal veterinary medicine over the last few years. And one of my co-directors started a conference which the practice runs every year. The conference is all about dairy, sheep and goat management and dairying, and that was one of our original bold steps, was to get that idea off the ground. And as I say, it's now an annual event. We have sort of 100 odd delegates every year, and people come from around the world, actually. We've had people from North America and Europe, I think even New Zealand attending the conference. So that's been quite a success. So we've had a few sort of headline things which we've been proud of and have made the process worthwhile. And I think as directors overall, we've begun to feel more sort of in control of the business. I think we all had ideas that we needed to do things better, but I think a lot of that was crystallized during that time. So yeah, hopefully that sort of summarizes the first part of our sort of journey with hgkc.
Yeah, it sounds like a busy time and looks like you achieved a lot there as well.
Yeah, I think we did. And when the GAP program, the Growth Accelerator program ended, we elected to retain Peter as a board and business advisor so that basically we could carry on the work that we'd started. So that carried on until fairly recently. So during the second phase of Peter's involvement, as I said, there was more to do to consolidate what we'd already started, but there was also quite a key focus on succession planning. As I said, 4 out of the 6 directors back then were due to retire over the next sort of 4 or 5 years. So there was quite a lot to do to make sure we had the right people in place to step up and carry on the business. So yeah, that in a bit of a nutshell is an introduction.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you. Very informative as well. So overall, how did you find the succession plan process?
It was good. Probably compared to a lot of the other things, which I suppose when we got down to them were reasonably straightforward, succession planning is tricky. It's important to keep everyone in the practice happy. And I think traditionally in veterinary practices, what's happened as far as succession is concerned is that it's been based on vets who have been working in their practice, working their way up through the ranks, and people and they gain experience and other people gain confidence in their abilities. And it's often, I think, fairly obvious that certain individuals will want to step up and become shareholders and directors of the business. And that then leads on to discussions about those things. And I think in essence that's remained our approach. That underlying sort of way of doing things hasn't changed. We all believe it's very important to work, because we work so closely together, we all believe it's very important to work with other people for a reasonable amount of time to know what we're dealing with and make sure that the right people are chosen to carry on. And Peter sort of knew all this. He knew the way we worked, and he helped us, I think, to refine and formalize that process. And to start with, we all received some training on the role of the director. I don't think when I joined the directorship, I was really aware of many of the things that a director legally is obliged to do and the responsibilities. We looked at all those things and the differences between the different hats that a director wears, either a director's hat or the manager's hat or the shareholder's hat. That was all, I think, slightly new to some of us. I also, 2 or 3 years ago, stepped up to the role of chairman of the board, which was something it was done very capably by my predecessor, and something I was a bit anxious. I wanted to obviously do that as best I could, and Peter gave me some coaching to help me do that more effectively. And then we also did a considerable amount of work just looking at the senior leadership team, so the directors and our practice manager, probably our head nurse, and some of the more senior vets, looking at the way we all work together. And Peter sort of approached that by using the DISC model, work of leaders format. So we did some profiling of the team, the current team, as well as some profiling of potential new directors. And I think that enabled us to understand better the soft skills which are important to being a director. I think also crucially it enabled a better understanding of how we all differ in our characters and just the way we work, our strengths and some of the challenges we all have, so that we could function better as a team and understand each other better, work better together. So that was quite an important part of the work that we did. And then another, probably the final main thing we established was the position of an associate director. So rather than going from an assistant vet straight to a director, we sort of introduced this stepping stone, which was a position for an associate director, so they could attend board meetings and be privy to all the information about the practice that they needed. And really just to give that associate director a better idea of what was expected, what goes on, what the time commitment was likely to be, whether or not this was going to be something that they would enjoy doing. And also from the other side, it gave the current directors an opportunity to see how we thought those people would measure up and perform as directors if they indeed decided to do that. So it was a sort of try before you buy type situation, which, made a lot of sense, I think beneficial for all sides. And it certainly gave it good exposure of the duties and, the downsides to being a director, all the problems that come along from time to time. Gave them exposure to that before actually committing to become a board member and shareholder. So that process served a purpose. One individual who initially was interested in directorship went through that and then decided that, that possibly wasn't for them, and they stepped down. And, it was all amicable and worked well, and process served its purpose. And Peter also delivered some extra training for potential associate directors, helping them to again go through sort of SWOT and context analyses for the business, getting them to develop some strategy and some bold steps, game plans and that sort of thing for things that they are interested. Most young vets have ideas about how the practice could be better and changes they'd like to see. So that was an opportunity for them to have a look and see how that could actually be done and how that would work in practice. So yeah, I think those were the main sort of pillars of work that we did with Peter on succession.
Yeah. So what would you say was most effective about the way hgkc helped you?
I think probably goes back to what I said at the beginning and the reason we chose Peter in the first place. I think he understood the nature of our business and what we wanted to achieve and the culture of the business. So it seemed as though he very much he wanted to work with what we were already doing and make it better, rather than say, well, we need to do it this way. This is the way you have to do it, and that's it. So I think his good understanding of the way we wanted to work was probably the main thing that helped that whole process. Obviously Peter was always available, had lots of skills and knowledge and, tools available to help those things, always very approachable. But I think underlying all that, his sort of ability to work with the way we wanted to work was key, I think. So yeah, that was an important part of it.
Yeah. So finally, one last question from me. What piece of advice would you offer a business looking to seek external advisors to help with their succession plans?
I think it's probably go back to my answer to the last question, really. I think finding someone who is on the same page as you and understands the way your business works, and come, back to that word, the culture of the business, the values and goals and all those things, I think is probably the key thing in terms of working through a succession plan. And I think you probably need some time to get to know what the business needs and wants as well. So I think the fact that we'd done 2 or 3 years worth of work before we really got stuck into the succession planning side of things helped enormously, because Peter knew exactly what he was dealing with by that time, and he was able to sort of tailor what he did, probably. And I don't know, obviously, but I would imagine in other businesses with other individuals and personalities, he may have approached it differently. I don't know, but so I think that probably is, it's finding someone who is happy to work with you rather than try and force something to fit where it's not really a good fit. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. Yeah.
And I think Peter realised how important it was for the directorship group to work, harmoniously together, and understood the chemistry of the team and what we needed, really. Yeah. So
that's great.
That would be my key message, I think.
Yeah. Good advice there. So that's all from me. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me today. If you're interested in talking to hgkc about your exit plan, fill out our contact form and we would love to hear from you. Thank you.